Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Welcome, guys. Welcome. We have Jackus returning from vacation. I'm Tommy. You guys also know me as Snorlax. We have Louis, Meat Stick Monday. We've got Prometheus. Welcome, guys. We are going to have another great market check for you all today. Kind of mixed messaging across the board from markets. I'm sure we'll dissect a lot about what happened here over the last, 1 to 2 weeks. And of course, over the next 1 to 2 weeks, looking forward through this market. But yeah, before we can do that, guys, before I can kind of begin more granular market commentary, I think you know what I'm going to ask you. I am going to need you to smash, slam, annihilate, destroy that like button, especially because we've got Jackus back. And I will even up the ante today. If you guys hit a certain number of likes, which I'll be honest, I have not quite determined what number that will be. Not only do we have Jackus back, but I might face reveal for the first time in a few weeks. So we've got
I forget what you look like, Tommy.
We've got 2 reasons to hit the like button today. Not to grovel or anything, of course, but yeah, let's talk about the markets, right? Because obviously last week was pretty interesting. Bitcoin has been especially strong. Equities have given us a very nice rally off the lows. I think it's probably about 10 to 15% on the NASDAQ and the S&P. Bitcoin, though, has been kind of like this bastion of strength for all markets, trading up almost 20 to 30% here over the last 1 to 2 weeks. I'm sure that was not bad bad for you, Chef, to be watching Bitcoin just go up and not have to babysit anything while you were on vacation. But yeah, Bitcoin has been strong, and I think we kind of got a bit of an idea of why that has been the case, right? This morning, Michael Saylor announced that he bought a bunch of Bitcoin. I'm not quite sure what his average price was. It seems like his execution's been a little bit better than it used to be, but even still, right? I mean, Bitcoin has been very, very strong. We haven't quite seen the catch up from other altcoins. Some of them have given us some very nice moves off the low, right? Solana's up 50-60% from the lows. And then, of course, you have some individual names that have been showing tremendous amounts of strength, right? Like a Sui, a Hyperliquid, a Fartcoin, for example. Gosh, someday I'll be free from having to say that ticker every day, but today is not that day, unfortunately. But yeah, just starting the week off with generally pretty flat price action. I think this is a pretty big week, though, as far as what is it? Volatility incoming, decision time soon. This is kind of a big level for both bears and bulls to be stepping up, defending, attacking, whatever verb you want to use. It's probably going to be a big week. But how are we doing, guys? Like I said, I mean, markets aren't terribly volatile thus far this week, but it is still just Monday, of course, and we are heading into the end of the month. How are we feeling about things right now? Is there anything that really sticks out? And welcome back, Jackus, of course.
Yeah, well, happy to be back, guys. Happy to cook. Happy to enjoy the good times, good vibes again, and mainly the market moving, right? It's been the week before I left, the market was kind of lethargic. So it was, as you said, Tommy, it was a little bit wild to know that the price was pumping and me not checking it. I had to convince myself, like, hey, don't look at it. Don't enjoy the vacation. You need to refresh, And but yeah, I'm not going to lie, I did check it a few times, but mostly I stayed away. And that's just the habit, when you are in this game, you kind of love it and you watch it. But yeah, we are getting right now a little bit of, seems like, Sailor sell-off. Seems like Sailor bought yet again, and the market, as in the good old days, dropping after that. Not much to really care about. locally. I think the prices are looking great. I think the downtrend has been visibly broken, and yeah, happy to watch the price for the next weeks.
Yeah, I think I think this week's going to be a really, really big week and a big tell. I mean, we're going into obviously the end of the month. It's, earnings season, and we're going to get a lot of the, largest companies in the S&P give their, forward guidance for, the next quarter. You have majority of the Mag 7 reporting, and you also have a lot of really important economic data coming down the pipeline as well. Like Jack has said, we did. It looks to be that we broke market structure back from bearish to bullish, and you want to, see some follow through here. But I mean, I would expect a little bit of a pullback here. Even into potentially 88K, just from a structural retest of the previous resistance level, and kind of flush out those late longs, right? We did see a lot of people last week. Kind of long the Shmiko top, and I wouldn't be surprised, if market makers kind of take advantage of that, potential offsides positioning that we're seeing when it comes to these people that entered in a little bit late to the party. And also, fun fact, the last week we saw more shorts liquidated than at any other point through this entire bull market, which is something that I did post about on my timeline. And funding was largely negative, and I think market makers really took advantage of that. And then, of course, we had Michael Saylor, buying up here, what I think to be at a little bit of a local high. We'll flush out some of those late longs, and then probably set that higher low from a structural retest standpoint, and then we can kind of see where we're at until then. But that's kind of what I'm seeing in the market. Louis, what are you seeing?
Quiet weekend. Totally fine with that. We had a big move last week across the board in markets. What I am seeing, let me go to a different chart here. What I am seeing is Bitcoin continuing to close daily candles. Close daily candles back inside our previous lost market structure, right? So last week, big candle poked our head and actually closed that daily inside this range, which was extremely bullish. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 daily candle closes back inside this range. And that's an extremely good sign, right? That's price attempting to gain price acceptance back inside a previous market structure that we lost. Kind of just ranging, right? We're kind of just in a pause state after a big move. I would expect this to kind of be our new price action range or territory, whatever you want to call it. Anywhere from 95.5 down to, I would say, just like Prometheus said, anywhere from 89 to 88K. Anywhere in this area, expect pullbacks, but also don't be surprised if price continues just to bull chop and squeeze higher into this range. Daily time frame is sending me signals more and more like we're going to continue to just bull chop and squeeze higher into the range. Lower time frame looking, like a possible scenario where we can see a pullback. But I think those pullbacks are for buying if we get them. One thing to note is I'm pretty aware and pretty much sure that there's many people waiting for this pullback, right? They didn't trust the move off the lows, and are now likely, okay, we're starting a move off the lows. Just give me one more pullback, and I'll get in. Normally, when you come into those circumstances, the market usually tends to grind higher first, and then maybe you get the pullback. But doesn't necessarily mean that's what has to happen. We definitely can see some sort of pullback in this area. But just looking at market sentiment across the board, continuation of bull chopping or squeezing higher into this range wouldn't surprise me at all. So expect a continued upside, but also being prepared for pullbacks.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like the obvious. I mean, you've got it marked out on the chart, Louis, but not just for Bitcoin, but I think a lot of these, some of our traditionally leading altcoins like Solana, BNB, and ETH, these are kind of like the last levels where you could kind of envision a bearish retest. Otherwise, you're likely squeezing a good bit higher. I don't know how quickly that necessarily happens, but I've been kind of highlighting on Market Check, I think it was last week, we've seen Bitcoin's strength. We're trying, you could argue that we already have reclaimed our previous range. What I would like to see next is, some strength and some market structure breaks from some of these other majors that signify that altcoins will eventually catch up, right? Like I said, that's a BNB, that's a Solana. Obviously, Solana already gave us a very large move off the lows, but I'm going to specifically highlight BNB here. I would like to see some market structure breaks on this asset to believe that Binance is about to pump more than just Bitcoin. But I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Jackus.
I was just going to confirm that we definitely do need to see more follow through. I think we are seeing it, getting it, and it's kind of a matter of time. But I agree, we still do have to see it, of course. I think we saw a good structural break for both Bitcoin and Sol. We haven't seen that for ETH, that's for sure, just yet. But hey, the sky is blue. And for BNB as well, I agree. BNB has been probably one of the most weirdest chart in a while, but we discussed that before, and it's still the case. So no idea what's going to happen over there. It sort of really looks like there are lows to take, but so there are the highs to take now, and it kind of could go both ways. And XRP still looks really strong to me. So
yes, it does.
It didn't really have any structural break to the downside, and it had maybe on like the daily, and it has already reclaimed it really well. So I would say more or less the market really has confirmed the upside. And obviously the most important ones being Bitcoin, and I think ETH and BNB are to follow up later on, as they mostly do later on.
Yeah, I'm in a pretty similar camp. XRP is showing a tremendous amount of strength. We did get the XRP ETF. Was it approval or just was it or did they apply? I can't remember.
No, there was some sort of product that was released. I saw it over the weekend, but I didn't really look into it too much.
Yeah, I didn't either. I just briefly.
I think it was a paper traded product. I don't think it was a spot.
Oh, okay, wasn't a spot. Yeah,
no, but I think there are some sort of options being released on it. I think it has something to do with options.
Interesting. Open up the options market before the spot market. No, but I mean, I think, XRP is showing a tremendous amount of strength. Ethereum, for me, it's really what you really need to get above is that 2100 level, especially if you go on the 3-day chart on Ethereum from a structural standpoint. That's your level, right? It would, kind of coincide with the previous support that we did see, for the majority of, this cycle up until we did break those lows. And so getting over that 2100 level for me would really be a great, kind of, we'll just call it a barometer for the majority of alts to run, right? I mean, ETH is been, like Jack has said, the sky is blue, but I mean, ETH has been the weakest of the bunch. And if you can get the weakest of the bunch to reclaim its market structure, then it's pretty much a risk on signal across the board, right? And that's something that I've really been watching out for. Solana did break its market structure once we got above that 145 level, and we did come back for a little bit of a retest here, it looks like. And with Solana, I think if you really get above that, 154 level, there's nothing but air up until, 180, really. And, that could be, if we do break that 154 level, like we've seen from Solana, for the entirety of this bull market, it has been the the signal for on chain for things to really start kicking off in regards to anything on chain once Solana starts to outperform to the upside. So majors here, some of them are showing strength, some of them need a little bit of help. Ethereum needs a little bit of a help to the upside, but ultimately, right, a little bit of a pullback here, wouldn't be, the worst thing in the world, and would allow for a little bit more continued accumulation on, in the broader market. And then we could potentially see, a big leg up. And how cool would it be, guys, to get a, a strong rally over the summer, which we have not seen since what, 2020, right? That would be pretty cool, and definitely a little bit of
You want to be kept inside while it's sunny out?
Bro, I have like 4 vacations planned. I will be out in the woods regardless of the fact. I might need to buy some Starlink, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing across the board, right? Some nice seemingly like change of market structure characteristic from the majority of the majors except for Ethereum. So
Man, I'm going to be going outside all the time this summer because I haven't really been able to go outside for weeks. I mean, I have, but like not really. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's been almost 2 months, which is kind of hard to believe. But now I'm going to echo your thoughts, Prometheus. I think, I feel like altcoins have a lot of like catalysts that I can understand pumping them. Not the broader market, but on an individual basis, right? I mean, over the weekend, you had somebody, I think, file for an XRP futures ETF. You've obviously got other potential ETF catalysts for certain coins. But I'm going to continue to say, and I know it's something that we've talked about on this show before, but it does seem a little delusional to me to expect a huge alt season without ETH's participation, right? Which I think a lot of people want to consistently talk about that possibility. But at the end of the day, we need ETH and to a lesser extent BNB and Sol to really perk up to have that altcoin outperformance. And Bitcoin dominance certainly looks like it's going higher, but typically when we see ETH, BNB, and Solana showing that relative strength, at least against the broader altcoin market, you're going to see more opportunities in individuals. You pointed it out, Prometheus, like Solana on chain, BNB for most of these VC altcoins. Typically, when we see BNB pump, those are not far behind. So, I'm just going to echo it one more time. I don't think that you can have a huge alt season, and not in the sense that people are probably thinking of, right? Like a 2021, but just altcoin outperformance without ETH, perking up as well. God, nothing hits like the first coffee in the morning.
Hello.
What's up, Meat Stick?
I like that break that you have there, Louis.
You like that?
I like that. Kind of.
What does it? What does this look like to you, Jackus? What do you get? What do you get from this chart?
It's a bearish breakout, and 20 billion next.
Right.
oh my gosh, the Lambos that we can buy.
Total. What are your total targets, anyways? Do you guys have like near term? Not near term. Let's say it's hard, right? Because I'm so used to gauging the crypto market as far as like cycles are concerned, but it's very clear we're kind of moving away from that. So normally I would say, what are your end of cycle like total crypto market cap targets? But like I don't even know if that's like a thing anymore. It's hard to say.
How do you define the end of the cycle anymore?
I know it's like, you really can't. at this point. If I had to take a whack at it, we're sitting at 3 trillion right now. Looks like we're pretty much flipping the 2021 crypto bull run all-time highs for the asset class as a whole here. Came above it, slowly consolidated back into it. Got a weekly breakout candle last week here. If we could see some follow through here from this, I think 7, 8, $9 trillion market cap could be on the table coming into the end of the year if the market cooperates. What do you guys think?
I think that is exactly the case. We are, we have flipped the range highs and we are now using it as support. And the break of this structure of this little falling wedge that we have had is confirming that to me. And the only way, like lots of people are not expecting what they are wanting, right? Like there are so many people who want lower, but to me lower would mean much lower, right? And maybe that's something what people want, but I say that we cannot be accepting back in the prior range. Like this pullback that we got is totally fine. The market showed that this is where it wants to hold. We have broken out of it, and I expect it to hold until it doesn't. If it doesn't, I would have to see reasons for it. But right now, the probabilities simply favor higher up from my perspective. So that's the way I'm gonna play.
Yeah, you could literally just look at this chart and just go, okay, this is like crypto asset class as a whole, right? You start doing this could be just a clear sign, okay, it's not wise to be exposed to the crypto asset class at this time.
Yeah.
But if you're pushing here, this is screaming, an asset class that's about to enter price discovery and continue to grow its network effect, right? So as long as, crypto asset class as a whole is above like 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion market cap, I see no reason why, you shouldn't be exposed, in my opinion.
I kind of like that 4 to 5 trillion range for the end of the year.
That's where I'm at too. I was targeting, probably like 4.5. And from
only not even a double from the last cycle high.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is, you have to bring context into the discussion, right? And we've seen from this entire cycle BTC doing the majority of the heavy lifting, whereas last cycle we saw a broader bid across the entire sector. And I think to get to those, double digit market cap numbers, that you really need a broader adoption when it comes to the actual tech and the actual utility of crypto as a whole. And I don't, and I'm not saying that can't happen this cycle. And if it does happen this cycle, I think you can hit, that, potentially 10 trillion market cap, but, maybe something that happens next cycle. You need something other than Bitcoin to really be doing the heavy lifting to see that rapid, repricing in the overall crypto asset class.
Absolutely agree. We do need to see that.
It's so difficult for me to define like what a cycle means for crypto anymore, because I think you can define, at least like it's very easy to visualize what cyclicality is when you look at altcoins, but Bitcoin is just kind of like, we've talked about this before. It's basically in its very own super cycle. And I think Bitcoin will likely remain, within that super cycle context until you see it eventually flip gold. I don't know when that's going to be, but I have to imagine that when that happens, Bitcoin's probably hit its long-term saturation point as an asset. But at the same time, we have a long way to go before we get there. Like that's another 10 to 11x I think, on Bitcoin. So altcoins will probably continue to go through these cycles, but I have to imagine that downside on Bitcoin is ultimately going to remain very limited.
Yeah, agreed as well. And I think there is lots of time actually before gold does flip Bitcoin. Sorry, before Bitcoin flips gold. And lots of people, and I was saying this before, like 2-3 years ago, I think, is that lots of people are not calculating in that the gold market cap will keep on rising. And I'm not sure actually what it is right now. I think it's
Gave a bit of a
like
blow off while you were gone.
I think it's like 40 trillion right now, but the last time people were like calculating it and
22.
saying, yeah, it was like 22. But the thing is that gold can go to 80 or 100 trillion market cap. Like that's not going to be that hard, and Bitcoin doesn't have to go and flip gold market cap. All it can do is just acquire like 1/4 or 1/2 of it, and that still means lots of multiples. That like even if you go conservative right now and say that gold will stay where it is and doesn't move, and Bitcoin goes to only half of gold's market cap, right? That's 10 trillion for BTC, and that's still like 2-3x, I think. Sorry,
5x.
that's actually 20 trillion, so that's way more. That's wait, let me have
It's
a.
over 10x. I think it's like 11x.
Oh yeah, so you see, so even if you go like quarter of the current gold market cap, that's still so much, and yet people are like, oh, do you really think Bitcoin can go to like 120K? And I'm like, yeah, probably much higher. And it's really hard for people to imagine. It always is in the history of times. So my recommendation is always to follow the charts, not your current emotions, and especially not the current prevailing market sentiment, because you want to stay bullish as long as the trend is, as the market is, and the market knows it all. It contains all of the insiders and everything, so
Follow the money.
You think there's a catch-up trade here with silver, Jackus?
like silver catching up on gold? Yeah, I think so. I think it's not going to be just silver. I also think oil, and as I've been saying, I think the decade of commodities, and it's playing out. We are seeing that, but as I said many times too, it's decade. It's not a months. It's not a year. It's a decade, and during the decade, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities, but also plenty of pullbacks, and that needs to be counted in. And I also think that Bitcoin, to me, is a digital commodity.
Yeah, that's what they're defining it as at this point in time.
Well, it's like it's still in that gray area where people will bid it for risk on, but you're clearly, I feel like, seeing it trade much more closely like a risk off asset as well. So you're kind of getting like the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Not to say that Bitcoin will never show weakness again, but there's a pretty there's no second best. Right? There's no second best, and it's hard for me to imagine that dynamic changing before we see higher Bitcoin dominance against the rest of the crypto market.
I think during this pullback that we had since January, I think Bitcoin's shown the most resilience amongst all major assets, and from like all crypto, we can only count Bitcoin as a major asset, I would say. And if I compare it to how Max 7 stocks have done during this time, versus how Bitcoin has behaved, it's a clear winner.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I mean, Bitcoin's breaking out against the NASDAQ, or at least that was how it looked last week. I don't remember if I said it while you were here or while you were on vacation, Jackus, but I do think that we've seen kind of like that permanent paradigm shift between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ. Not that Bitcoin's about to go parabolic against the NASDAQ necessarily, but I do think, any downside that we see, not only would I expect, I mean, maybe Bitcoin, if we are going to, see lower pricing on indices, I'd have to imagine that Bitcoin's probably outperforming, or at the very least, recovering significantly faster.
Yeah. I mean, Bitcoin has been outperforming NASDAQ every cycle, and this isn't any different. But I agree that there is also this gray area where, some people view it still as a risk on, and some people start to view it as a safe haven. And that's a good thing, because the moment everyone will view it as a safe haven, it's, the opportunity is gone. The opportunity is there exactly. So for either you are first, where you are ahead of everyone and you see what pretty much nobody else sees. I don't think we are there anymore, but we are still in that. We are sort of at that phase, and I think all major institutions now, or at least the smarter ones, know it, where you basically have the asset class accepted. It no longer bears the risks, pretty much, but it does still offer that upside, and that upside is still due to the fact that there is still some institutions that still, view it as a risk on, and there are some who doesn't, and that's exactly, where the percentage are made. It's also an emerging asset, digital commodity, so in that case, it makes sense that while we hit the decade of commodities, this emerging digital commodity will outperform. And I don't really care what other people view it as. I like, by all means, I view it as such. Even the SEC, who was, very anti-crypto, said that Bitcoin is a digital commodity. So you even have a regulator confirmation. Not that I needed it, but it's out there. And so in that sense, it's a no-brainer to me, It's a no-brainer. I really don't know what people are waffling about.
It's really pretty funny, because it's like you're outlining, I think, so many reasons for Bitcoin's optimism, and then at the same time, I think there are a lot of natives who just have no exposure to Bitcoin, and it's just like depression phase in altcoins. It's such a, I think, unique duality that we've seen in this cycle thus far, but I think it comes eventually, right? I don't know if it's going to be like 2021 style, but I do think eventually Bitcoin dominance will go high enough that you're going to see some inevitable rotation. But I'm not sure that we're there yet, at least as far as like altcoin outperformance goes. I think Bitcoin dominance is going to put in a top though this year, probably like a very pretty long-term top. And then we see a broader rotation. I'm not quite sure like what the primary beneficiaries of that. Obviously, I have a few dubious speculations, but yeah, I think we're getting close from a time standpoint to that Bitcoin dominance peak saturation, because I think like our acknowledgement of how there is no second best is the type of, I think, sentimental extreme that you eventually see market top for Bitcoin dominance. But I don't know that we've gotten quite skewed enough for that to happen. But
indeed, I wanted to say something and I forgot what it was.
Sorry, I was yapping too much.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You totally can yap. Don't feel bad for it, Tommy. It's just that Yeah, it's kind of my fault. I need to do and make notes during it. Never mind.
What do you guys think about the altcoin market today? Speaking of,
Oh yeah, I think I know. I wanted to. Well, I'm not sure if it was what I was going to say, but I definitely wanted to add to the fact that crypto natives don't own Bitcoin, and that's true. And we are at that also gray area where like people will look at Bitcoin and be like, or like the natives, right? And say Bitcoin doesn't offer me those returns anymore. But at the same time, you will have those institutions look at the Bitcoin and they will say, oh, it offers me those returns. The duality, right? One says it doesn't offer me those returns, and the other says, oh, it offers me those returns. And it's because we live in this crazy world of fiat, and people simply need to hyper gamble their net worth in financial markets, and there's no better way to do so than in crypto. And so that creates the environment where people are gambling on alts and not owning BTC, really. But at the same time, institutions are looking for high probability with decent enough outperformance, and Bitcoin gives them that asymmetric bet. So it makes sense that it will happen. But I think it's eventually needs to happen for crypto, and I think it will. But the question is about timing. And I agree with you, Tommy, that I still am bullish on the Bitcoin dominance for a little longer. And yeah, that's the case. I think generally Bitcoin will drag ETH up. So you can see the USD valuation go up, but I still think that the ETH BTC chart might suffer for a little longer, which Bitcoin dominance essentially is. I think coins like XRP will keep outperforming Bitcoin though, but the overall market might have to wait a little longer.
I think that's a great way to put it, honestly, or viewing it the whole cycle, right? Like Bitcoin is, from an ROI standpoint, still more than satisfactory for these institutions. And who is creating this entire cycle? Institutions. So we probably won't see that inflection point for altcoins until that point's hit for institutions where, okay, well, Bitcoin doesn't offer the returns that you would expect to get from a crypto cycle. Time to move down the risk curve. It's going to be really interesting, I think, to kind of see what that looks like. If we get some like MicroStrategy type company that ends up doing something with like a meme coin, who knows? I mean, I'm sure it's going to get absurd over the next few years, but I think these are very big, high time frame themes. So, I know everybody wants these things to happen later in 2025. But these are, I think, the time that we have to wait for this shift to occur will ultimately be more than worth it.
Agreed. And that also bears another psychological aspect, is that the amount of time it takes, right? We will get the next pump at some point, and people will look to sell it at break even, the natives exactly. And it will take a longer time before the normies jump in on the hype. And you know how it goes. Only a handful of people will be able to hold it through. And by the way, Luke, yes, it is still on. I had to pause it because I had obligations to BB Discord members and YouTube right now. But I was just so busy with everything, answering people's questions and writing it, getting the right feel of the market and so forth. So it's still on, just taking me some time.
Don't rush yourself back, Jackus. I'm sure you enjoyed the sunshine and the detox. Always good to have a vacation in the market, man. And you come back seeing the market much more clearly, typically.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and it's much needed too. I spoken about this to the guys that like it's not a tip, it's a prescription. You have the, if you get the reference, for to have the breaks, because you need to relax your mind. It's tough to step out, not watch the charts during it, but it's needed. And then when you come back, as you said, Tommy, the mind is it's clear again.
I think that's a good spot to transition actually to our crime of the day. I don't know if you were here when we started this new trend, Jackus, but we like to look at the crime of the day that occurs in our wonderful world of crypto. But today's crime, I mean, you already got it. Louis already had it figured out. It is indeed Monero. People have
Literal crime of the
been
day.
mentioning it in the comments. It is literally crime. I think you had something get hacked and they're laundering the money through Monero. Just funny, man. I mean, you know, what can you really say, right? This is kind of like the best. I mean, it's at the very least the market's expression of the best privacy coin that you can buy. It's not a surprise to see that funds were sent there. It's kind of almost like the Tornado, like the new, or what am I saying? New, the better version of Tornado Cash.
Yeah, it was, the timeline was hilarious last night. You had all the Monero hobbits pop out of their holes after 8 years and be like, the game-changing, groundbreaking tech, and it's just somebody laundering, like 50,000, or not 50,000 Bitcoin, but like, I forget, it was like 5,000 Bitcoin or 15,000 Bitcoin through Monero.
I
mean, the chart looks good before that, like it looks, we were actually talking about it too in the Discord there, like, this looked squeezy. And then obviously you had whatever happened came in, but this candle, this weekly candle, boom, back inside. We were expecting some sort of squeeze. Obviously, came on crime, but the chart did look ready to go.
Well, as Louis says, like I was telling this to people, it's goodbye ahead of the pump. But obviously that was even before the like upside ahead of the pump, and the pump obviously happened due to the crime, sure, but the chart looked really great regardless, especially even if you zoom out like even more. This is a prime chart telling me that it wants to rip to price discovery. Obviously we'll see if that happens or not, but I think the probabilities are pretty good. It's Dynacoin. It's the most market accepted anonymous coin that's out there. You can think of it what you want, bet on it. I think all the thought that it needed to happen on it has played out. That was all the exchanges delisting it. That has happened. That's as it goes for the anonymous coin, and now it's just looking phenomenal. And the thing is that if you had a chart that pumped like Monero has, you would have people aping in it. But now you had the pump, and you have people not wanting to jump in because they'll be like, yeah, that was the crime pump, so obviously it will go down. And obviously it's important to observe it, how it behaves, if it accepts, if it accepts around these levels and starts filling the wick again. But I think lots of people will not want to buy it because of that, and then it's a perfect example for it to continue higher up.
The chart does look good on the high time frame. I mean, clearly setting higher high time frame, accumulation ranges. And, we did get that breakout, obviously, on the news. It is what it is. But for a chart to show strength, even through the delistings, like Jackus has said, that's pretty impressive. Most coins, if they had, delisted or gotten delisted across the board, would have a really, really hard time supporting price. And you're seeing actually quite the opposite, right? Monero looks to be, having a really nice bottoming base form out. We're starting to, grind up higher, set higher highs and higher lows, and into the actual, into this pump was, the chart, preceded the crime, right?
Yeah, I mean, and someone pointed it out in the comments. Imagine if they released it at some point, which I don't think this is the case, but nor is it needed. Like, you have right here, you have basically 7 years of price action. Through that 7 years, it had all the time to die, especially after all those delists, as you pointed out, Prometheus. Most charts would go to Goblin Town. The market showed you an amazing absorption, like even during the 2022 bear market and then during the range. So I highly recommend not fading that, because the market is a collective knowledge of all market participants, even those who have insider info. Keep that in mind. So yeah, and we know it's also been a cycle of the Dino coins. So the market is clearly picking a winner here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think
Monero
Monero
ETF
is.
inbound.
What were you going to say, Prometheus?
Oh, I said Monero ETF inbound.
Probably never, but I think kind of to what Jackus was saying about Dino coins, I think the market's kind of just finding utility in some of the original coins, or maybe not utility, but interest again in some of the more original coins versus obviously the hundreds of thousands of coins that we've made here over the last year.
Well, there is definitely utility in Monero. Like there is an actual utility and people are actually using it, even though it, if it's on a darknet or whatever, but it's out there and lots of natives loves it. Even lots of diehard Bitcoiners that do not really like anything else. There is one exception, and that tends to be Monero. Even though they might say that Monero might might not outperform Bitcoin, but I think it can have a good time in the cycle where it can, and and they are more prone to be buying it actually. So I think it does make sense, and the utility is for sure there. The only thing going against Monero is that nobody knows how much there is coins in existence, and it can never be known.
Yes. It's part of the fun, right? That mystery.
It is. It's and to a certain degree, that's a both bearish and bullish case. So, and I suppose what it really needed was the time to see if if someone is going to dump it, and if there is some hidden whales, and there obviously are, but probably 7 years is what it took to know if the market wants to just be a rug pull or not, and it seems the market is starting to realize it's not. But and as it grows on price, the confidence will grow as well. So I still think it's a good time, and I wouldn't be fading. And obviously it needs to be monitored, right? Like this move that we had, needs to be monitored. You want to see acceptance, you want to see the wick getting filled, that we've created today. But I wouldn't just be ignoring it, saying, hey, it's a crime pump and that's it, and now to zero. I wouldn't do that.
I agree. No, I completely agree. I kind of have a theory developing that Monero, I don't know if it'll go parabolic within a year or two. It certainly could. I kind of just think it'll perpetually grind up though forever. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I don't know. I kind of think it'll do something along the lines of what Oracle did after the tech bubble, 2000.
I do agree, Tommy. I think it will tend to grow as long as there is need for anonymity, and the need for anonymity in finance is needed as long as you see more and more crackdown on general finances of people. Like let's not pretend people, especially like what's been happening in the UK, and I'm not from there. Maybe some in the comments are. But we've seen, lots of videos where people just wanted to withdraw, like not even something crazy, like 2-3K to buy stuff, and the bank didn't allow them. So it seems to be more and more like this Orwellian, state around the West regarding the banks. And so as long as that keeps on growing, and it definitely is growing, the need for anonymity is going to grow as well. So that perpetual bid does tend to make sense.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, trying to withdraw, a few $1,000s and being denied by the bank that's that's pretty crazy.
Like they want you to know what you're gonna use it for, right? Imagine that. Like
yeah, you have to like sign something. That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, to to add to that, there's going to be at some point where the whole meme of, crypto, the whole like crypto use case narrative meme flips on its head into where that's where the majority of the market's, largely it's actually going to be adding tremendous value into people's lives, because the majority of the sector right now is just largely speculation, as we all know, and as we degenerately gamble on our favorite memes. But we're kind of, in my eyes, and I think maybe next cycle might be more it, but really going to be, there's going to be use cases, right? There's going to be projects that are actually impacting your daily life, whether you know it or you don't know it. And true adoption, that's not centered around speculation, but that's actually centered around, real world use case in a way. Because at some point that is going to happen. And this cycle has not been that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like I had said with the whole total market cap talk, was that Bitcoin's been doing majority of the heavy lifting, and I think the true wealth effect occurs for the crypto natives, and kind of alongside of Jax's long-term time horizon, where if you can hold the quality assets for a prolonged period of time, ultimately that's going to probably, for like 8 to 9% of the market participants, outperform than rather just jumping and shitcoining and trying to rotate from coin to coin. And I think that is the true super cycle. And then we'll get to that saturation point that Tommy's talked about, and Bitcoin will probably turn into something like gold did, where we chop sideways for the better part of a few decades. And then you'll start to see value spring up in individual names across the board. But I mean, I'm truly excited for genuinely the next 5 to 10 years and what that has to offer, because we haven't even seen the repricing when it comes to the discussion of crypto actually impacting people in their day-to-day lives, whether they know it or not, in the financial institution environment and the whole back end of everything.
Yeah.
I think all
I
the
think the
token.
real
Oh wait, go ahead, Darius.
I just wanted to say that I think the real winners will be those who just stay around, and it will not matter as much what you bid, as long as you, sort of split the bits kind of well, but as long as you stay and don't, overcomplicate it. And trust me, there are lots of ways to overcomplicate stuff.
Yeah, I think the dilution that we've had over the last like 1 to 2 years kind of creates the conditions to ultimately separate the wheat from the chaff, right? Because people do, I think, after a certain point, they want to believe in something. And Jackus, I think you said it, those who stick around are going to be the people who win. But clearly what has not been rewarded are chasing, these quick returns, the quick trends, the people who have consistently held assets that have appreciated against Bitcoin and obviously in USD, but really only a few assets have kind of consistently outperformed throughout the cycle. But yeah, no, I do tend to think that we are creating the conditions for people to gravitate towards things worth believing in. And those will be the real winners from this cycle, which has an undefinable time horizon, right? I think that needs to be said. This is the adoption cycle. We can't put a rigid, 4-year structure around it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, if you think about it, we're really only in like the first inning, especially when it comes to regulatory. Like the first step is regulatory clarity. We're in the equivalent, of the, 1920s boom, where it was like the wild, wild west for the stock market and nothing was regulated, and nobody, there was no like prospectuses on like the amount of shares that companies could issue, and they could just like print as many shares as they crypto's in that period right now. And if you have a long-term time horizon, you're likely going to be a rather large benefactor for the better part of, in my eyes, for the next 30 to 50 years until quantum computers rule the world and we go into Matrix. But
that's sort
Why
of
so optimistic?
That's kind of the line you can end every conversation with.
I know, right?
It's sort of like you can talk about health and be like, yeah, but nothing really matters because when quantum computing comes in, it will solve all the diseases, and
eventually we all die.
Well, I always used to make fun of AI people that are just like, AI is going to take your job. It's going to take your passion. It's going to take everything you love, including your wife and kids. But here's why you should be excited about it.
Yeah. And top 10 reasons for it, right? Read my thread. Literally. Like, I mean, listen, this fear, it's real. And I'm not going to go into the crossbows for those listening. But the fear of robots taking your job has always been there. The opposite of that has happened. People were worried that the robots will take people's jobs like hundreds years ago. The reality is that we have one of the lowest unemployments in history, and people are finding reason or life's purpose in the work as well, alongside other things. So I wouldn't say that is going to be the case with AI either, and I remain optimistic.
I am too. I also think that the super AI maxis are maybe a little bit too optimistic about what the tech is going to eventually end up doing, but that's a topic for another day.
Mm-hmm.
That too. I really think it's going to become like everything else in the world. It's going to become a great tool that we will use, that will be a huge effectivity growth, as I keep on saying. I don't view it as a bubble. It's a huge effectivity growth, and we will keep on using it. Just like nowadays, I'm watching and talking to you. You guys are from US. I am from Europe. We do not have any latency. I pay absolutely minimum fee for my internet. I watch it on my large, amazing screen. I talk to, this mic, use keyboard, like, oh my God, that like 100 years ago, this was unimaginable. Like totally. Like even,
Mm-hmm.
30 years ago, pretty much, maybe that was imaginable, but, the latency and the the fees you had to pay for the internet like this and all of that, sharing screens and stuff. And nowadays we all use it. The work has changed. It's better. And yeah, I think I do not think, I always view it like, hey, fire or water isn't good or bad. It's just how you use it. And there's going to be plenty of people who will use it bad. Always, no matter what it is. But you need water to survive, but you can drown in water, and you need fire to heat yourself up or your food, but you can get burned as well. And the same thing will be in with AI or on internet or social media. Like we use social media, we use social media to share our thoughts and discuss and have fun. But some people are addicted to it as well, and that will create lots of new jobs, like psychologists who will help you get through it. So, but generally, if you look back in history, the lie, the quality of life goes up, and nowadays a middle class man lives better than kings used to in the old days. Just saying.
That's very true.
Yeah. And
I'm usually not just real quick, Prometheus. I wanted to make a joke. I'm usually not a believer in the Chud Jack meme, but when it comes to AI, I felt like this was an appropriate profile picture.
Yeah, it's like the flying cars, argument. They expected in like the 80s that we'd have flying cars by this point. And, just it's and if you remember to there was like an argument, I think it was like 5 to 8 years ago, with 0 DTE options. And they're like, you had all these people where they're coming to the table, and there was all this worry and panic around 0 DTE options, and they're like, you are going to introduce so much volatility to the market, where in reality it did the complete opposite, right? It in a way actually stabilized the markets far more than they had been before, because it allows for market makers and retail participants to position more effectively. And that's the same with that it goes with AI. AI is no more than a tool and an asset to that in a way is going to bring a better quality of life to more people more quickly, right? And it just makes people's time more efficient and more effective. So that's enough of that rant.
This is not really true, because in the past, people used to work on the weekends and on the fields all day long. And nowadays, there is even consideration of making the week work just for 4 days. You do not have the weekends, you have lots of vacation. The working hours are also shorter. Plus, it's really not about the work time, but if you enjoy what you are doing. And I think as we grow, lots of people are doing more jobs that they enjoy than before too. Now, that obviously doesn't apply to anyone, and it's a work in progress. And obviously, we can have a local downside through the current time that we are in, unfortunately, which is the fiat world. And that does require to work more and more. So I do partially agree that some people need to have 2 or 3 jobs nowadays. But in time, that will get solved. And the world is definitely now showing you that it wants to fix stuff by, you see that in the rising prices of gold, rising prices of Bitcoin, and I think rising prices of generally all commodities. That's kind of where we are heading. And again, if you look at throughout the history, the quality of life does tend to improve, even though we might be in some local pullback, which I think we are in. But in a longer time, again, I think in like 20 years, I think we will be better off than we were before.
I think so too. I think that's a great way of putting it, Jackus.
Thank you.
Do
Apologies
you guys
for
what was that?
just apologies for those who are not interested in my psychological thoughts or or so. Just kind of came out.
They're here for all of the yap, not just a little bit of it, Jackus.
Indeed.
How are there any individual names that you guys are looking at that are maybe putting an abnormal price action? Maybe the setup's interesting. We're coming into probably the tail end of the show, but maybe there are a few tickers that we want to look at before we officially finish up.
I was looking at ass poop tits to shove in my net worth in all in. Good price action.
You joke, but there are Solana people who actually do this.
They do. And for some it works. It's a lot theoretical.
I think I'm going to long the psychiatrist and psychiatry sector from all the people that are, traumatized because of being crypto participants.
Real.
For real.
I remember GCR saying it might have been in 2022 or maybe it was 2021, but I think he was effectively saying that if somebody made like a gambling detox product specifically for crypto, it would probably do really well.
Makes sense.
Yes, that statement aged very well.
We still don't have the product, and we have more gambling problems than ever before. Oh my god.
We're going to be using AI to psychologically consult people.
For real.
Dude, a
Like-
lot of people use them as their psychiatrists and stuff, and they'll like just sit there and it'll be like, I had a really rough day, and
A digital asset that buys back its token whenever people pay for psychological services from an AI. Who is building this?
Someone
new
should.
BB venture.
This is real though. Also, touching grass is the cure.
Yes,
It is.
yes.
I speak from a weak experience. Unfortunately, I will not get to feel it for a while. No, just kidding, man. I actually do try to, touch that balance, and I think it's working pretty decent.
I
Good
feel
point.
like the longer you go with like in between really touching grass or going on a vacation, like the very diminishing returns for a portfolio. Even I don't know if you could like.
Mhm.
I'm sure you could back test that if you actually tracked it, but yeah, no, I think the longer in between those mental breaks, probably the worse your performance becomes as you get deeper into it.
I mean, and even the best participants, have a tough time, separating out the noise. And there's so much noise, right? And you really like the people that are, the most effective in these markets are the people that are best at, combing through all that junk and garbage. But yeah, definitely important to take some vacations, go get lost in the woods.
No, this is a big grinder party. Like 95% are men.
I think
We've got a handful of females.
Yeah, we do. At one point, we were
Believe it or
100%.
not. Shout out to all of our ladies in the audience today.
Indeed. By the way, Grinder is grinding higher.
Oh no.
No.
Louis, I'm gonna need you to add that to your watch list real quick.
Oh my gosh, it is.
Jeez, man.
What in the world?
Wow.
How do they monetize that?
It basically looks like the hims and hers chart, I think.
Bullish that stock, by the way. Removing the doctor out of the equation was a brilliant product market fit.
Yeah, speaking from my last few weeks of experience, I would agree that's an ingenious business decision.
How are you doing, by the way? Or I suppose I'm not sure you want to say it.
No, I'm doing well. I mean, I can probably walk in another, well, walk is relative, but I'll be able to put full weight through my knee hopefully in like 3 weeks. And then I'll be on crutches probably for another few weeks because I've got a hot dog leg that I'm gonna have to build muscle back in. But yeah, things are good. I'm healing pretty well. All
Amazing
things
to hear.
considered.
Love to hear it, man. Wish you the best from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Jackass. I'm ready to be done with it. I wanna be able to walk in the sunshine during summer. I need it.
Speaking of grinder, someone made a very spot on comment. Oh man.
Do we have the oh, we do.
I think BTC is just going to kind of melt higher.
Showing a lot of strength with indices being down. NAS is down over 1%, QQQ is down over 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shown a lot of strength.
Yeah.
And I guess too, there was a lot of ETF inflows on Thursday and Friday, I believe, of last week, which is always a good sign, right? If the big boys are bidding, that's been historically, great for the market.
Agreed. And
Even ETH has been starting to see some positive flows as well for the first time in a long time.
That's a new one then.
Yeah.
I mean,
ETH is just kind of the ugly duckling, but I do still think that Sol ETH is top. Whatever that means for USD prices, I guess, is TBD. But
I just have to ask myself when it comes to Solana, right? What has been the underlying bid for Solana this cycle? And it's been due to the amount of activity that we've been seeing on chain. And if you go and you talk to the majority of participants, 95% of them did not have a great time on Solana. And it was not a wealth creation, narrative or event. People went on chain on Solana for the most part and got absolutely obliterated. And I'm like, how much more capital or, is that, we'll just call it demographic, willing to or have to really put, back into the trenches,
They're gonna take their new credit card and try it again. It's a chain of gamblers, of addicts.
It is, bro, and it's just such a I just can't stand Sol on chain. I'm sorry. It's a terrible
not my
time
cup
in
of
my
tea.
opinion.
I think if you're good at it, you're really good at it, right? For me, I don't really have too much edge in Solana on chain. I hit a great trade with Whiff. Outside of that, I don't know if I've made money on like more than maybe 1 or 2 Sol shit coins ever.
See, and you can't have a cup of tea when you're on chain on Sol. You have to have 3 Red Bulls, all shotgunned, and 5 cigarettes, and be
That's the important one.
bloodshot eyes staring at the screen, watching every tick.
For real. I mean,
Sounds like the last 3 months for me. Just kidding.
I
Not
mean,
really.
we would discuss this again, but what ETH really needs, in my opinion, is it's not a gambler's chain as much. Like I think what ETH needs is really to benefit from its whole ecosystem growth, which it doesn't really as much. And what brings the value or that narrative for you, Tommy, that Sol is top, is stuff like AIF or so that will bring a real world utility towards it and is benefiting from it. And then obviously maybe some side speculation. But I think Sol will always stay as the main speculator chain. And I think, it's a perfect market fit and there is no need for ETH to be fighting it. I think what most institutions will look to do is rather build on ETH, than Sol. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of what I'm seeing all around. And we still see the largest developments and activity being done on ETH. Maybe that will change in the future too. And I know it's unpopular opinion right now. And maybe one more thing that can do it is those staking ETFs. I think that would change stuff as well.
I think you're right, Jackus. I think ultimately the way that you justify having multiple chains like a necessity to exist is that they're going to have to fundamentally do different things. So, I mean, obviously Solana has captured a majority of the new mind share for this cycle. I think that's more to do less with the meme coin mania. I mean, obviously that's helped, but I think it's more because we haven't had quite enough capital.
Oh no, here we go again. Tell me.
I think Tommy
We lost Tommy. It was the inverse head and shoulders on ETH that did it.
Yeah.
Did I rug?
Yeah, I mean, you try to positively speak about ETH, Tommy, and the Matrix news straight away, instant rug pull.
I think what I was saying was damn, what was I saying? I was cooking, I know that. But no, I do think they're gonna have to fundamentally do different things, right? Because I think the biggest reason Sol outperformed this cycle, it's less to do with the meme coin frenzy and mania and more to do, in my opinion, with the fact that the hot ball of money around altcoins hasn't been like it hasn't grown at a rate that we've typically seen from previous cycles, right? So it's a little bit harder to pump something like ETH. You kind of need a fundamental reason to hold it over Solana in the sense that you can't just bid ETH anymore because it's Bitcoin beta and expect it to, outperform everything in the market. That paradigm has ended, and Solana was the primary beneficiary of that this cycle. But I do think inevitably, ETH will either distinguish itself or it will die. There's no in between.
Yes.
Somebody's got to get Vitalik off the buttons. I'm sorry. Like, they need to nuke his account. They need to testosterone injections. Just get him away. Like, he is a cancer cell for Ethereum. I'm so sorry. Like, it has to be said, right?
Vitalik's a DMT entity.
Dude, he is a cancer cell. You gotta cut it. You gotta cut it out. You gotta cut the cancer out. Like that tweet the other day, he's like, Ethereum organization will stop selling when you stop complaining about price. Like, what?
Wait, that was real?
Was that real or was it not? Because I didn't look into it.
We tweeted it, but I think it was a joke.
Was it a meme? Oh, okay. I thought I didn't look into it. Yeah, but I mean, geez, man.
But I bet that's what he's thinking anyways.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, but they definitely need to find a way to capture some revenue from these like layer 2 and layer 3
Yeah,
applications. Like that's a big issue that I see with Ethereum right now is find a way to
yeah,
capture that, and then, you know, things look a lot better.
exactly that. Like that's my absolute number one base case that needs to happen. When you do that, suddenly everything changes.
I almost wonder if you need the L1 trade outside of ETH to maybe not like die. And I don't think that this involves Solana, but just kind of like all of this ETH beta L1 stuff that does nothing for ETH. I almost wonder if you kind of need that trade to like die. And I don't know what that means necessarily, like if you see that reflected through USD pricing or just through time. But ultimately, ETH is going to beat these chains because it's more secure ultimately, and there's better liquidity on it.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what the catalyst necessarily would be for something like that. Dollar gonna keep nuking, guys. It's gonna keep nuking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it. I'm
Say
gonna
it.
say it.
No reason
JPY.
not. It's coming. The 2-year yield is about to drop further. The 10-year also tamed. Things
Mhm.
looking good. I mean, like BTC is going to rip, man.
It is the manner though and how we go about it. Like the the most part, you know, Dixie going down is bullish, but the manner in which it goes down is important too. But when we did have that move from the beginning of February, like that was such a blow off top move. That was crazy.
I think this is I would view it as this is the first time you are really starting to see risk on, because if you're gonna look at the run from 2014 to 17, it ran and then it ranged, and then you got the risk on. If you're gonna look at 2021 to 2022, or I would say more 2021 till 2025, because from that moment, in 2022, as you said, you had that overshoot to the upside, but then it dropped down. But imagine that didn't happen. If you can like use the color Louis of your background and just hide the upside on the Dixie there in 2022, right? So just use the rectangle and then use the same no, just the top, imagine as if
Like
even
that?
higher, a little bit more higher, just the top, really, from like 108. Yeah, sort of.
Wrong color. Wrong color. There we go. Oh,
And you need to bring it forward. Yeah, so if you're gonna imagine the Dixie like this, then you have exactly what has happened in 2014 to 2017, and the same thing what has happened from 2021 until 2025. Imagine that blow off top didn't happen in 2022, and rather view it that we had the run up, and since then we had this range, and only now we are getting the risk on period. And this is how you need to view this chart.
One more leg lower and then we grind up for 2 years.
I tend to think so too, because I think the initial dollar depreciation is gonna bring USD JPY down.
And we are also, by the way, there is so many talks like, oh, Well, isn't it better to now measure stuff in euro? And what about like how like how do I hedge myself, right? And people are like, oh, maybe I shouldn't hold fiat in USD but in euro. It's like, but I think there is more downside for Dixie though.
Than the euro?
I think there is more downside for the Dixie, and I think there is more upside for the Euro USD pair.
Do you think that that's a move that happens sooner rather than later? Or do you think it's a move like we see some mean reversion, maybe back up into potentially 102 before we see that larger rotation?
I think it can be playing out through like this year and the next one, potentially. And probably possibly even longer. I'm talking about something that has happened from 2002 to 2008. So that could be another few years of the downside here, but with few upsides in between on Dixie.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, where I go to is like from a structural standpoint on the Dixie, like if you really zoom out and look at it on the high time frame, we did lose that low at 99, and it looks like we're coming for an underside retest. And the next support I really see is like 95.
Yeah.
I can see it playing out like this, run range lows, get your bounce, and then something like that.
Yeah,
I think
what I think.
I think there is no support until 93.
Yeah, I mean, fuck it, 80.
Yeah,
See.
80 is my target, like very long term, like macro target, but that is the one that can last years.
Like decades, you think?
No, not decades.
Not decades.
I could see that hit this term.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's a good thing though. Like if you think about it, like how much distrust there would have to be in the US financial institutions for the dollar to nuke that hard.
Well, I mean, there have been a few times in the past where the dollar nuked very hard. I think you can kind of pinpoint like even something after let me get the exact date. But I mean, the dollar went down from the tech bubble top all the way to 2008. I mean, the dollar went down almost 50%.
That's crazy.
It is.
Yeah, that is.
And I obviously was not old enough to understand any like level of significance with that, but I don't really remember reading anything about how people were afraid of dollar devaluation at that time. But it went down, like I said, like 40%.
Look at this.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look at the 80s.
88. Jeez.
Is there an emerging markets ticker? Do you guys know of an emerging markets ticker?
MSCI.
Could you overlay that on that chart?
I think we're seeing the creation of a multipolar world, which will obviously involve America taking a step back from the dominance that it's had. But I don't think completely going away and dying in the way that, probably a lot of doomers would love to frame it.
This didn't work. Hold on.
Put it on new price scale.
Okay.
Oh, that's a fresh ticker, isn't that? Let me see if I can find a.
should probably wrap it up anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are coming into that time. We've been cooking for almost 2 hours.
I think that's a good spot, guys. I'm going to play a quick commercial before we send y'all on your way. And then I'm going to show you guys, of course, a few features of the BB terminal before we wrap up. But here is a little ad from us at BB, just talking about the BB terminal, guys, which is your go-to tool for this cycle.
Tired of outdated trading tools, confused charts, dozens of tabs, endless stress? You're not alone. Introducing BB Terminal, your all-in-one command center for crypto trading. Track your portfolio, monitor the markets, stay ahead, all in one place. From chaos to clarity, from struggle to success. BB Terminal.
All right, guys. We hope that you enjoyed Market Check today. Like the ad was just showing you, BB Terminal is your all-inclusive, trading tool for crypto. Whether or not you are a long-term investor, whether or not you are an active trader, or whether or not you are an on-chain degen, I promise you will find some or a significant amount of utility using it. So make sure to check out the BB Terminal, guys. We've been doing giveaways with free codes. The portfolio tracking is free as well, and that is linked in the description below. Of course, if you go on our website, you can see that the terminal is packaged with our premium Discord, where you get 4 to 5 hours of calls from the team every single day, breaking down markets, and of course, our intimate thoughts on the market and positioning in real time. If you're looking to hone your educational base or even reach trading level mastery, we also have the BB Academy. So if you're looking for a bit more of a personal setting to be learning from the team, we've got that for you as well. And last but certainly not least, we have an SEC registered hedge fund. So, maybe actually trading the market is a difficult proposition. And let's be honest, it has been very difficult to trade this crypto cycle thus far. We have the opportunity for the team to manage capital for you. Just, take it out of your hands, get it out of your hair. I know how stressful crypto can be. But yeah, check out BB Wealth Management, guys. Like I said, we have an SEC registered fund where we trade digital assets in a way that looks to capture their asymmetric history for upside returns, while also balancing the downside risk posed in any financial markets. But if anything that I just said over the last 90 seconds resonated with you, check out the description below. We have everything linked there. But thank you guys again for tuning in to Market Check. A reminder that we are live every day. The New York Stock Exchange is open. Our typical start time around kind of 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard, sometimes a little bit before, sometimes a little bit after, but generally around that time you can expect to find us live on YouTube and X. But also make sure to finish up your day with Market Talk, hosted by King Wabi. He does a great job hosting those shows. Always some great discussions and great guests on, but that is a reminder that is live in the afternoons through the Because Bitcoin X account as well as Wabi's account. So make sure to stay following and subscribe to both of those so you can be notified, not just when we schedule those spaces, but ultimately when they go live as well. Thank you again, guys. It was a great Monday. We started the week off strong. We're going to have a great week talking about markets with you all. But until next time, thank you again, guys. And of course, stay safe.